Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so excited to be your guide today as we explore a seriously amazing part of the world. Think about a really busy hallway at school between classes, where everyone is crossing paths. Well, if you look at a map of the world, Southeast Asia sits right in the middle of some of the busiest ancient travel paths on Earth. It's basically a global crossroads for trade, travel, and the mixing of totally different cultures. So let's jump right in and discover how this fascinating region came to be.
Picture this. You're trekking through a thick, green jungle hundreds of years ago. You step out of the trees, and suddenly you see an absolutely massive, breathtaking structure right in front of you. This is Angkor Wat. It's a spectacular temple complex built way back in the 1100s, and it is incredibly huge and packed with detail. Seeing structures like this really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who built them, and how on earth did they get the wealth and power to pull it off? Well, let's find out together.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. 1. The first Southeast Asians. 2. Trade builds mighty empires. 3. Monarchies and new religions. 4. Western powers take control. And 5. Our summary of Southeast Asia.
All right, starting with part 1, the first Southeast Asians, tens of thousands of years of history.
The human history in this region goes back an incredibly long time. We're talking tens of thousands of years ago, when the very first people arrived by land. Later on, thousands of years ago, more groups arrived, but this time they came over by boat. Then a massive game changer happened about 5,000 years ago. People started farming in the area's rich, fertile valleys. Because farming meant a steady food supply, small villages started popping up everywhere. Finally, around the year 2000 BCE, a really important group of people migrated in, the Austronesians.
So you might be asking, who exactly were the Austronesians? Well, they were highly skilled seafarers and expert rice farmers. Imagine sailing across the open ocean thousands of years ago. No modern GPS, no digital maps. They were literally navigating by the stars and the sea. They moved all across island Southeast Asia and the Malay Peninsula, and what's really amazing is that their influence didn't just fade away. Austronesian languages are actually still spoken today by millions of people in Malaysia and island Southeast Asia.
Moving right along to Section 2, Trade builds mighty empires, the power of the sea routes.
As those early farming villages grew, they started trading with other places, and this trade sparked some massive changes. But before we get into that, let's learn a very important key word: empire. An empire is a state containing several countries or groups. So we're not just talking about one single town here. We're talking about a massive, powerful state that has taken over other groups. And those early Southeast Asian city-states, well, they thrived on their rice farming and trade, eventually growing into these huge, powerful empires.
Just imagine these ancient sea trade routes, kind of like an ocean superhighway, around the year 1000. These paths connected India to the west and China to the north, flowing directly through Southeast Asia. Traders were constantly traveling these routes to buy precious gems, ivory, and really valuable spices, like nutmeg from the Spice Islands. Because of all this bustling trade, empires like the Srivijaya and the Kamar Empire grew unbelievably rich and powerful.
And that brings us to our next key word, crucial. Crucial simply means essential or decisive. So, why did the Srivijaya Empire become so insanely wealthy? Well, because they controlled the crucial trade routes right between the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Think of it like owning the only bridge in a really busy town. Every single person who wants to cross has to pay you, making Srivijaya extremely rich.
Here is another great vocabulary word for us: incorporate. To incorporate means to blend or merge things together. When all these traders from India and China sailed into Southeast Asia, they didn't just bring cargo. They brought fresh ideas and even new religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. But here's the cool part. The local people didn't just copy the traders. They incorporated these new ideas into their own daily lives. They beautifully blended South Asian writing systems and architecture with their own local cultures to create something entirely new and unique.
Okay, Section 3. Monarchies and new religions. Beliefs travel along trade routes.
Those merchant ships carried a lot more than just spices. They brought entirely new ways to rule and new ways to pray, and the geography actually shaped where these religions ended up. On the connected mainland, places like Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, we mostly see Buddhist kingdoms. But out on the islands like the Malay Peninsula, Borneo, and Java, Islam traveled along the Indian Ocean trade routes. So those island regions largely became Muslim states. It's a pretty handy way to remember it. The mainland is mostly Buddhist, and the islands are mostly Muslim.
For those Muslim states, we definitely need to know the word sultanate. A sultanate is simply a monarchy headed by a sultan. As a great example, back in the 1400s, the Sultanate of Malacca was incredibly powerful and controlled a massive chunk of the Malay Peninsula. Other sultanates eventually spread all across Borneo, Java, and parts of the Philippines.
But even with all these outside influences, local culture held strong. Take the gamelan, for instance. It's a traditional musical group that actually originated on the Indonesian islands of Java and Bali. So even while these mighty new sultanates ruled and new religions spread, distinct local arts, music, and traditions like the gamelan continued to flourish. It proves that the local spirit never disappeared.
Let's move on to Section 4. Western powers take control. The arrival of European explorers.
So in the late 1400s and 1500s, explorers from Europe began sailing across the globe, eager to capture a piece of that very rich spice trade. But here's the thing, they didn't just want to trade fairly, they wanted to conquer. As Europeans took over, they actually renamed entire regions. Let's learn one of those names, Indochina. Indochina is the peninsula that includes the modern countries of Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. During the 1800s, the French conquered this specific region and took total control of it.
By the year 1900, almost the entire region was carved up by Western powers. The United Kingdom took over places like Myanmar, Malaysia, and Singapore. The Netherlands occupied Indonesia. France, as we mentioned, conquered Indochina, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Portugal held on to East Timor. And the United States eventually took control of the Philippines after fighting a war with Spain. These Western powers were strictly looking to profit, so they built massive railroads and seaports just to export the region's resources back to Europe and America.
But wait, look at this incredible exception. There was one part of Southeast Asia that completely avoided conquest by Western powers, and that was the Kingdom of Thailand. It's pretty amazing. While literally all of its neighbors were colonized by the British or the French, Thailand strategically managed to remain a fully independent kingdom.
And that brings us to Section 5, Summary of Southeast Asia, putting it all together.
Let's do a quick wrap-up of our main points. First, highly skilled Austronesian seafarers and farmers set the early foundation for the region thousands of years ago. Second, those crucial sea trade routes connecting India and China brought incredible wealth and totally new ideas to the area. Third, fueled by this trade, mighty empires like Srivijaya and powerful sultanates rose to power. Fourth, as beliefs traveled, the mainland became mostly Buddhist, while the islands became mostly Muslim. And finally, European and Western powers arrived and colonized almost the entire region to export its resources.
Before we finish up, I have one last important keyword for you: ethnic group. An ethnic group is a group of people who share a distinct culture, language, and identity. During that colonial period we just talked about, massive numbers of Chinese and Indian people migrated to Southeast Asia looking for work. They formed brand new ethnic minorities, which incorporated even more languages, foods, and rich traditions into the region.
Which leaves us with this final big question to think about. How do these ancient trade routes and moving populations still shape the vibrant ethnic groups of Southeast Asia today? I mean, the food we eat, the languages spoken, and the religions practiced in the modern world all stem directly from this incredible history as the crossroads of the world. Thank you so much for hanging out and learning with me today in this explainer. Keep wondering, keep asking great questions, and I will see you next time.